Welcome to the Deep Dive podcast channel. Ever feel like your motivation in college? Well, it has its own unpredictable weather system.
Oh, definitely.
One minute you're totally energized, ready to go, and the next. Just thinking about opening a textbook feels like climbing a mountain.
Such a common experience, isn't it, that roller coaster?
It really is. So today we're going to explore why that happens, why staying motivated can be such a challenge sometimes. We want to dig into the real factors, beyond just needing to try harder.
Looking beneath the surface.
Exactly. Think about those times you felt incredibly driven versus those moments you felt completely stalled. What's really going on there?
And it's important, I think, to move past self-blame. Understanding the why can be really empowering.
Absolutely. And, if this kind of exploration, this digging into the why behind our experiences resonates with you, maybe consider subscribing. That way you won't miss future deep dives.
Good point.
Would also love to hear your thoughts in the comments. What parts of this motivation puzzle really hit home for you?
Yeah, hearing from listeners is always insightful.
So let's start with something fundamental. Our brains.
Okay.
We hear a lot about dopamine. What's its actual role here in academic motivation?
Well, dopamine is often called the reward molecule, but it's maybe more accurate to think of it as the anticipation molecule. It's about the drive towards a potential reward.
Ah, okay. Not just the pleasure itself.
Exactly. So for a student, the anticipation of finally understanding a tricky concept or imagining getting a good grade or even picturing future career success that can trigger dopamine release.
So it nudges us to get started and keep going.
Precisely. And interestingly, people have different levels of dopamine sensitivity. So some individuals might sort of need a stronger potential reward or a clearer goal to really feel that motivational kick. It's not a flaw, just a different neurological setting,
That's a really key insight. So if you struggle to get started sometimes, it might not be like a lack of willpower. It could be how your brain is wired for those cues.
It could certainly be a factor, yes.
Now, what about executive function? That comes up a lot with college demands, time management, planning.
Crucial. Absolutely crucial. Executive functions are managed mainly by the prefrontal cortex, the front part of the brain. Think planning, organizing, prioritizing, focusing attention.
All the stuff college throws at you constantly.
Right. And the key thing here is that this part of the brain, the prefrontal cortex, isn't actually fully mature until our mid-20s.
Mid-20s. So most traditional college students are dealing with these huge demands while that part of their brain is still under construction.
That's a good way to put it, yeah. It's still developing its full capacity. So feeling overwhelmed by deadlines or finding it hard to juggle multiple assignments or even just sustaining focus for long periods that isn't necessarily a personal failing, it can genuinely reflect this ongoing neurological development.
Wow. That really reframes things, doesn't it?
It does. It suggests the need for strategies, for external support systems, rather than just self-criticism.
Which leads nicely into this idea of a trauma-informed perspective. You mentioned shifting from what's wrong with me to what happened to you. How does that connect?
It connects quite deeply. This perspective recognizes that past experiences, especially stressful or traumatic ones, can actually change brain function, particularly in areas that regulate emotions and our stress response.
So past events can impact present motivation.
Significantly. For a student who's experienced trauma, the normal pressures of college, like a big exam or a looming deadline, might feel disproportionately threatening. Their brain might shift into a kind of survival mode,
Okay.
diverting energy and resources away from higher-level tasks like learning and towards just managing that feeling of being unsafe or overwhelmed. Understanding this link allows for more self-compassion.
Instead of just feeling broken or lazy.
Exactly. And it opens the door to strategies that focus on feeling safe and regulating emotions alongside tackling academic work.
That makes so much sense. It's recognizing the whole person, their whole history. Now, thinking about earlier history, childhood, how can those early experiences with school and achievement shape our motivation later in college?
Oh, profoundly. Think about how you were praised as a kid. Was it mostly for getting good grades? Or was it for effort, for curiosity, for trying something hard?
That's a good question. I imagine for many it's heavily weighted towards grades.
And if that's the primary message you receive, that your worth is tied to your academic results, then motivation in college can become fear-based.
Fear-based. How so?
Driven by the need to avoid failure, to avoid disappointing others or yourself, rather than a genuine desire to learn or explore. Your self-worth gets tangled up with your GPA.
So the pressure comes from avoiding the negative, not seeking the positive of learning.
Often, yes. And that's a really draining way to operate long-term. It can overshadow any real interest you might have in the subject.
And what if those early expectations felt impossible, like you could never measure up?
That's the other side of the coin. If a student constantly felt they weren't meeting those internalized expectations, maybe from parents or teachers, they might develop a sense of, well, learned helplessness.
Like, why bother trying if I'm just going to fail anyway?
Exactly. It can lead to disengagement, sometimes unconsciously, as a way to protect oneself from feeling inadequate again. Recognizing that pattern, that old story, is the first step to challenging it.
It's like these hidden scripts running in the background.
Very much so.
And these scripts can lead to things we see a lot in college: procrastination, perfectionism, burnout. Let's talk about those shadows of achievement.
Right. These are often coping mechanisms, not character flaws. Procrastination, for instance. It's
Yeah.
rarely just laziness.
What is it then, usually?
It's often about avoidance. Avoiding the feeling of being overwhelmed by a large task, or avoiding the fear of not doing it perfectly, or avoiding the anxiety that comes with potential failure.
So putting it off reduces the immediate anxiety, even if it creates more problems later.
Precisely. And perfectionism ties into that. It sets this impossibly high bar. If I can't do it perfectly, I won't do it at all. It becomes paralyzing.
That all or nothing thinking.
Yes. And then there's burnout. That happens when students push and push, often driven by that fear-based motivation or perfectionism, without enough rest, support, or recovery.
Just grinding constantly.
Right, leading to exhaustion, cynicism about their studies, feeling detached, and eventually a real drop in motivation and performance. These things really thrive in environments both internal self-talk and external pressures that don't allow for mistakes or prioritize well-being.
It paints a challenging picture. But it's not all shadows, right? There must be bright sparks, ways to find and sustain healthier motivation.
Absolutely. And the most powerful source is often intrinsic motivation.
Meaning motivation that comes from within?
Exactly. It's fueled by genuine interest in the subject, or finding personal meaning in what you're learning, or seeing how your education connects to your values or a larger purpose.
Like studying environmental science because you deeply care about conservation.
Perfect example. When there's that internal alignment, the drive feels more natural and sustainable. It's not just about the external grade anymore.
What else helps?
Community and belonging are huge. Feeling connected to peers, being part of study groups, having supportive mentors or professors, these create emotional anchors.
Makes you feel like you're not alone in it.
Definitely. That sense of shared experience and mutual support can make a massive difference, especially during challenging times.
And this intrinsic drive, this passion, it doesn't have to be some huge dramatic thing.
Not at
Right?
all. It could be a quiet fascination with a specific topic, a deep curiosity about how something works, or simply enjoying the process of problem solving in your field. The key is connecting with what genuinely feels meaningful to you.
Finding your own why.
That's a great way to put it.
So for someone listening who feels really stuck, maybe deep in procrastination or just feeling drained, what are some practical tools, things they can actually do besides just trying harder?
Yet trying harder often isn't the answer. It's more about creating a supportive inner environment. One useful framework is body before brain.
Body before brain, what does that mean?
It means recognizing that our physical state impacts our mental state. Simple things, taking a few deep breaths, doing some quick stretches, even just getting up and walking around for a minute can help regulate your nervous system.
Calm things down a bit.
Exactly. Which can actually help your executive functions, your focus, your planning work better. It gets you out of that fight or flight mode.
Okay, that's really practical. What else?
The tiny task technique is another good one. If an assignment feels overwhelming, break it down into the smallest possible first step, like ridiculously small.
Like just opening the document
Yeah.
or writing one sentence.
Yes. Or even just finding the relevant readings. The goal isn't to finish the whole thing. It's just to build a tiny bit of momentum, to overcome that initial inertia. It makes it less daunting.
I like that. Lowers the activation energy, so to speak.
Precisely. Another big one is learning to reparent your inner critic.
Reparent the inner critic.
Yeah. That harsh voice inside that tells you you're not good enough or you're going to fail. Try talking to yourself with the same kindness and encouragement you'd offer a friend who is struggling.
Challenge that negative self-talk.
Actively challenge it. Ask if it's really true, if it's helpful. Replace it with more compassionate and realistic self-talk.
That takes practice, I imagine.
It does, but it's incredibly powerful for rebuilding motivation from a place of self-support. And related to that is naming your why.
We mentioned that earlier.
Right. Actually, write down why this education matters to you, not to your parents, not to anyone else, but to you. What are your personal reasons? Keep it somewhere visible.
As a reminder when things get tough.
Exactly. And one more. If working alone feels isolating or just leads to more procrastination, try seeking collaborative environments.
Like study groups?
Could be study groups, or even just going to the library or coffee shop to study alongside other people, even if you're working on different things. Sometimes just that shared atmosphere, that body doubling effect, can help.
These all feel much more supportive than just forcing yourself.
That's the key. It's about fostering the conditions for motivation to arise naturally, rather than trying to constantly force it through sheer willpower.
It makes motivation sound less like something you either have or don't have and more like a current.
That's a great analogy. It naturally fluctuates, it ebbs and flows. The goal isn't to force the tide, but maybe to build a better boat or learn to navigate the currents.
I love that. Prioritizing curiosity over criticism, well-being over pressure.
And self-compassion, above all else, really. College can be this amazing space for discovering who you are, what you value, finding your voice, not just proving what you can achieve.
Such a healthier perspective. Okay, let's tackle a few common questions people have about this. We get these a lot. First one, why do I feel so motivated sometimes and then completely flat at others? Those dramatic swings.
Well, as we've kind of touched on, motivation isn't static. It's influenced by so many things, your emotions that day, your energy levels, your stress, dopamine fluctuations, even how safe or secure you feel. So those shifts are, honestly, they're just a normal part of being human. It's not a defect.
Okay, that's reassuring. Next, can trauma really affect my academic drive? Like, is that a real connection?
Yes, absolutely, unequivocally. Trauma impacts brain function, emotional regulation, how you see yourself in the world. When your brain's underlying priority is safety and survival, focusing on complex academic tasks becomes secondary, biologically speaking. It's a very real connection.
Right. Okay. What's the actual difference between discipline and motivation? People use them interchangeably sometimes.
That's a good distinction. Motivation is more the desire or the feeling of wanting to do something, that snark. Discipline is the consistent action, the follow-through, especially when that initial motivation isn't there.
So you can have discipline without feeling motivated in the moment.
You can. But sustainable discipline, the kind that doesn't lead to burnout, often grows from a foundation of self-kindness, clear purpose, that what we talked about, and intrinsic interest, rather than just forcing yourself through misery.
Got it. How do things like ADHD or depression specifically affect college motivation?
Both can significantly disrupt the systems involved in motivation. ADHD often impacts executive functions organization, starting tasks, sustaining focus, and dopamine regulation. Depression frequently lowers energy, disrupts sleep, and dampens the ability to feel pleasure or reward, which obviously makes finding motivation for anything, including academics, very difficult.
So they add another layer of challenge.
Definitely. And students dealing with these often benefit greatly from tailored strategies, accommodations, and professional support.
Okay. Are external rewards, like getting good grades or praise from professors, are those enough to keep me motivated in the long run?
Probably not sustainable on their own. They can definitely get you started, maybe give you a temporary boost. But for lasting motivation, that deep, resilient kind, it usually needs to come from internal factors.
Like meaning, values, connection, curiosity.
Exactly. Those are the things that fuel you through the inevitable tough patches when the external validation isn't there or isn't enough.
Right. And finally, this is a tough one. What should I do if I get to a point where nothing feels worth doing anymore? Like total shutdown.
Yeah, that's a really important signal. That feeling can often be a sign of significant burnout or potentially depression. The most crucial thing is, don't try to just push through it alone.
Reach out.
Please reach out. Talk to someone you trust, a friend, a family member, talk to an academic advisor or resident advisor, or crucially, seek out campus counseling services or a mental health professional. That feeling is serious, and getting support is absolutely key. You don't have to carry that weight by yourself.
That is such important advice. Thank you. Well, we hope this deep dive has shed some light on the really complex world of academic motivation, maybe offered some different ways of thinking about it, and some helpful perspectives.
It's a journey, not just a destination.
It really is. Remember, your path through college is unique to you. And just starting to understand the forces influencing your motivation, your brain, your past, your feelings, that understanding itself is a huge first step. It can help you create a more supportive and hopefully more fulfilling experience.
Couldn't agree more.
Thank you so much for joining us for this exploration today. We really encourage you to keep reflecting on what truly drives you, what matters to you, and maybe most importantly, to be kind to yourself along the way.
Absolutely. Self-compassion is key.